All right, welcome back. We are INFR3110 at Ontario Tech, and it's Game Engine Design and Implementation in the fall 2020 semester, and we're week 3, part 1 of our broadcast, but I'm going to start talking about game engine architecture in a second. What I want to do is just look at the schedule a little bit. So last week, what I wanted to do, and I think this was the plan when we first started this, was to give you group assignment 1. I thought when I looked at it last week, it was a bit broken, and I was going to put it up on the weekend, but then I thought you're going to need directions. You're going to need some steering directions or some additional information. So I figured that I would hold off until this week. It's not going to kill you, and I've extended the dates for when you have to get it completed, so that it's not something that's going to make you crazy, which is, I think, the main thoughts here. All right, between me and Nicholas, I think we're working together on this stuff, and we're thinking, what would it be like for us to be a student in this iteration of game engines, and we want to make it so that it is good. It's a good experience. So that's why I kind of held off last week. So we have plenty of time to get things done. So I'm not worried about your time frames. What I'm concerned about is that you know what to do. All right. So now, if you notice, today we're going to be talking about architecture. That's game engine architecture at a lower level. A little bit about Unity, very, very little. But and then next week we're going to get into the plugins and DLL conversation. So by next week, again, probably before I talk about it, chances are Nicholas is going to hit you with it on Wednesday. So I recommend that you go there. He's going to talk about Unity as well. I know that he's going to go into how to create a good Unity project and all that stuff. So between these 2 weeks, that's why by the midterm, it's super critical to attend that tutorial. If you don't, attend the tutorial during midterm week, for us, that would be not a good decision on your part. I think it's good because he's going to help you kind of get it done. And that's what I want him to do for everybody. He's going to basically give you a template and say, take this template, use it, and go forth and do what you have to do. I'm going to release the test during week 5, and it's going to be a practical test again earlier on. The plan is to make it so that everybody will have a slightly different feature set to develop. So it's not like you're going to have the same feature set as everybody else. So just stay tuned for the details around that as we approach week 5. And that's why week 4 next week is so critical for you guys to come in. Why we're talking about plugins and DLL. I'm going to do a checkpoint, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. And group assignment part 2, it says it's due, but actually what I've done is I've moved it so that it's inside of week 5 when it's due, and I'll go through the details of that in a second. All right, so before I get to any of this, the rest of the lecture today, I really want to talk about group assignment part 1 and all that stuff. But before I get there, I'm going to see if I can actually add our YouTube video, so that way for people who need to watch and they need additional support from a closed captioning perspective, I like to make this as accessible as possible. I don't know, sometimes they get really weird, really weird results like that. So I don't have that. However, for if you're watching it and if you want to share it on Discord or something, I'm going to put it in the chat. This is the link for the live video feed. If someone has to watch it remote, please give it to them. So I can't make it here. It won't work properly, and even if you try and link from here, it'll be no good. So I've posted a couple things. So we've posted the PDF for this week's lecture. I've posted group assignment 1 PDF. So whether you don't have to actually go to the Dropboxes to see the PDF document. That's important. And then I've also posted your GDW project requirements to make sure that you have everything you need to give to James by next week. I think this is important to do. I know your review is next week, so I think it's important for you to have everything you need. Okay, so that's what I've done for today. And again, it's as we get going, you're going to see more and more fill up on our week 3. Most likely we will not have a exercise today, only because of how busy we're going to be. And I don't want to, again, it's down to workload. I don't want to overload you guys, because there's going to be enough that I'm going to give you right now. So let's get on to the other part, which is going to be group assignment part 1. So group assignment part 1 in this group assignment, and you can pull it up on Canvas. You'll see that it's worth 10% of your final grade, like we said earlier. It's out of 100 points, but I've broken it down so that group assignment part 1, which is due next week, is just your base. So in this part, and this is before you do your design patterns, which we really haven't talked about yet, right? That's what I'm saying. That's why next week is such a critical week, if you will, right? You're going to be creating a level editor, and you're going to say, some of you will say, wait, a level editor, but Unity, that isn't a level editor, so why would we make another one? Unity is a game engine, and what the Unity game engine does is allow us to put levels together as a level or as a developer. But sometimes what you'll have is a level designer who will have zero to no code experience, and all they're going to be doing is they're going to be laying out your level. So that's what you're going to be doing here. You're going to allow a level designer with no code to place elements in your scene and then give the ability for the user to save the level that you can load up later on. Okay, that's the idea behind it. So you're going to create you're going to add elements to the scene. Everything from maybe for example things like your game objects, some 3D models that you're going to make available, that kind of thing. And then what's going to happen is what you're going to allow them to do is save with some kind of interface. So what's due next week? Because this is the whole thing that I'm talking about. Next week, what I want you to do is start putting together your base. So I want your base done by next week, which is 30 points out of 100. So 30% of it should be done next week. So you should have something that looks fairly good. Game objects that are in the scene already, some kind of user interface that allows the user to move things around the scene. There should be some kind of character controller. Again, and depending on the type of game you're going to make, the character controller has to make sense. This should feed into your GDW game. However, if you are a non-GDW student, as an example, then what you need to do is make an interesting scene with the ability that you would create, some kind of level out of it. Okay, so now if, as an example, you're in groups of threes, and let's say you don't find any usefulness out of this thing, okay? Because one of the challenges we always get is, Tom, we're making a game and it has nothing to do, like what you're asking us to do is nothing to do with what we really want to do in the game. Do we really have to make it so that it's compatible with our game, our GDW game? And the answer is no. I would accept that it wasn't, but I highly recommend that you do it so that way you kind of kill two birds with one stone. Because this is going to be, if you add this in, it's actually going to hit two things. It'll take care of group assignment 1, and then if you take the best of your group assignment 1s, because you're going to have two of them, one from one group of 3 and another one from the other group of 3, you take the best of these two group assignments and you include them in your GDW requirements, because you're going to need some other GDW requirements later on. This will meet part of those requirements. So it's kind of like it'll build nicely so you won't have to do double the work. Because if you don't include this in your GDW, then what's going to happen is you're going to have to add additional things. And that's fine if this is where you want to go. If you guys have a high resource group and then you can, pump out code, or you're living in some kind of pocket dimension somehow and are able to do it, all the power to you. Right? And I'm not going to stop you is what I'm saying. I want you guys to make this your own, right? So the idea of a level editor, it's got to help you out. So what I want you guys to do is just build out this portion for next week, which means it's got to be a scene in Unity. There should probably be some drag and drop capability, right? Almost like if you were going to drag and drop elements that you're going to add into your scene. Maybe, for example, enemy creatures or obstacles, if you're not going to make it that kind of game. Remember, I don't know what your game is going to look like. So I have no idea how this is going to work for your game. You have to make it so it's context, kind of related to your game, right? If it's not contextual, then this might be a make work project, which I don't want that to be. Now, if you're a non-GDW student, then it has to be something that's going to be fun for you and reasonable for you to create. For example, maybe you're going to create something like a 3D scene, and you're going to be able to place enemy objects or obstacles in a 3D maze, as an example. It could be something as simple as that. And then or maybe tiles. So if you're an artistic type and you have a good grasp of Blender, then what you could do is create 3D tiles. And I know Gavin has talked to you guys about how to create 3D tiles, and what you do is bring them into Unity and you'll snap them together to create almost like your level, whatever you want. You could do it that way too. There's lots of possibilities here. You can even make it, if you really want to challenge yourself, a procedurally generated level. So in other words, what you have is random kind of tile placement, and then what you can do with the user is you can give them an interface so that he can or she can randomly generate your level, some kind of procedural generation. It's up to you how far you want to take this thing, but it can actually be really, really cool. Or it could be really boring and a make-work project. It's really what you want to make of it. Okay, so that's what the first part is. The first part does not require any design patterns, although the recommendation is knowing that part 2 is going to require design patterns, because next week we're not going to look at design patterns. If you want to complete assignment 1 completely, you can do so. But the only part that I'm going to be looking at for part 1 is your base. Do you have your base? Do I have some kind of playable scene where I can drag and drop stuff, or kind of I lay out my level the way I want? There must be some kind of conflict, something that makes sense for your game. Okay, so that's what this first part is, and that's due next week, week 4. If you look up on Canvas, so let's do that together. On Canvas, from an assignment perspective, I've posted the assignment piece there. It says October 4th. So if we look at the due date where that is, that's the Sunday at midnight. Okay, Sunday at midnight. So you've got like about a week and a bit to get it done, just the base. Now, in the time frame that I'm giving you, you can also do more than just the base if you wanted to. But at least you have a pretty good enough time to kind of lay something out within about a week. Okay, so that's the first part. The second part, right, of your assignment is really doing the rest of it. So that's group assignment part 2, and that's going to be due October the 11th. Now, I know we have Thanksgiving in that weekend, so I would like it so that we don't carry it forward into Monday. But the Sunday is when it's due. You may want to do it beforehand, obviously. Sunday at midnight is when the assignment will be due. That's the assignment part 2. So the whole assignment, part 1 and part 2, is due really by Sunday, October the 11th by midnight, but I am expecting a part that you're going to hand in by the 4th. If you don't hand in part 1 by the 4th, you will lose 30 marks, whether it's done completely by the 11th or not. Okay, so I want you to chunk it up like that. Break it up for me. And there's going to be 2 videos, right, that you're going to make. One for assignment part 1, and another one for assignment part 2. Okay, we'll talk about the video requirements in a second. Okay, so that is your assignment part 1 and part 2. When it's due. Let's get back to this for a second. So that is your base. Part 2 describes different design patterns. So you need to do the following design patterns. The command pattern. And the command pattern, it really allows you to undo and redo. So again, you don't have to have that in your base, undo and redo, right? It doesn't make any sense, right? And for now, the factory pattern will allow you to spawn objects in game or create an enemy spawner, as an example. That's the other option. You don't have to have that in your base, but that's what the command pattern and the factory design pattern will allow you to do. Then you have to pick one other optional pattern of your choice from the book Game Programming Patterns, which I mentioned is free up online, and there's a link to it if you go to the PDF that I've given you. All right, so one other pattern. So those are the 3 patterns you have to put into play. And for example, the observer pattern can be used for dragging and dropping objects into your level editor. Well, you already drag and drop objects, but remember, they don't really do anything at this point. It's just a base. It's just kind of like a setup. The user interface is there, and that's all. So I got a question. What if we don't plan to have respawning object? Then again, what you want to do is kind of do something with something that also makes sense. And Daniel, what we can do is we can talk about some strategies around what makes sense for you. Anthony's put up his hand. Anthony, what happens if our GDW is 7? That's a good question. Is it 7? Did James allow 7? Okay, so again, maybe what we can do is we can Most groups are 6 to 7. Yeah, so what I'll do then is I'll make it groups as big as 4. So one group of 3 and another group of 4 would be fine. I can't give you a big group of 7 because it's just, there's not enough work for everyone to do for a group of 7. All right, so again, it'll be one group of 3 and another group of 4. Okay, and it's from a knowledge transfer perspective. Like, you have to know how to do it. Great balance would be, and I'll modify that, so bear with me while I'm going to modify that up online. The group size right now is a maximum group size of 3. So I'll change that to a maximum group size of 4 to support, what James has allowed you to do. I'm not obviously going to go against that. I want you guys to be comfortable fitting in your group into two teams, basically, 2 sub-teams. Right, so again, strategies would be, if you have a technical artist and a designer, split them up if it's possible, right? If you have people who are programmers, a couple programmers, allocate your programmers, a little bit strategically. One programmer, a stronger programmer should be on one team, and another strong programmer should be on the other team. Okay, so I want to make sure that 3 groups of 7 and 3 groups of 6. Thank you, Jimmy. So I want to make sure that it's supported. So I'll go through and I'll change the group size after this. Okay. But thank you for that. All right. So that's the design pattern aspect. Again, if you want, and if you see that there's another, kind of something that you feel is required for yourself, or something that you think you want to put in another design pattern. It's not going to hurt you, because at the end of the day, you're going to need them for your GDW project, as you're going to see in the future. All right, so that's one part. So there could be, this is a role for a 1 or 2 programmers in that group of 3 or 4. Okay, so 1 or 2 programmers, you can do pair programming and get this done. You could also assign one programmer as an example to do different user interface stuff that's going to align with your level editor, the base from part 1. There's a lot of ways you can split up your jobs to make sure everyone's busy. All right. The next part is pseudocode and UML. You can choose one or the other. You don't need to do all of them. You don't have to do like pseudocode, UML, and flowchart. Okay, just choose one of the patterns above per team, and then describe it with UML, pseudocode, or flowchart. If you want to use all, you can. But to me, that's a little bit, outside what you need to do, right? So I don't need you to hand in the diagram. So, and we'll talk about this because you're going to show it to me with your video. Okay, that's the important part. Part 3 is a DLL. So one part that you're going to have for your second piece, so for your part 2, is a DLL. So not only do you need to do design patterns, but there's a DLL that you need to integrate. And what the DLL does is, let me just turn this off because it's driving me crazy. The DLL will allow you to load and save your game level. Okay, so that's what it does. Okay, so, and this is critical again, because if you learn how to do the DLL, again, before your exam, or it's during the same time as your midterm exam, I recommend to you that Nicholas is going to help you most likely build something very similar, eerily similar, as Dr. Hogue likes to say, right, for your midterm. Okay, so hang tight. That's why I didn't make this part due this week. This actually was supposed to be due in your base. And I said, yeah, no, that doesn't make sense. There's not going to be time for them to learn it. I'm not going to kill them with the requirement that they have to research on their own. So I'm holding off, but that's why the part two of your assignment is a little, well, more heavily weighted than your part 1. Okay. So that's what's required. So some kind of saving and loading capability. So again, let's recap. So part 1, which is due next week, is basically the user interface, your Unity-based project, your GitHub repo, some kind of controllable character or character controller in the scene, whatever matches your game, right? You're going to have some kind of draggable objects, or it could be just selectable objects in game. However you want to do it, it's going to be up to you. It could be, you could use a menu, right? I'm not going to pigeonhole you into doing it in a specific way. You need to figure out what you want to do in terms of selecting the objects to add to your scene, whether it's the building blocks of your scene, like tiles, or whether it's enemies, or however you're going to put this thing together. It's going to be your creativity, I think, is what I'm looking for your base. Okay, and then part 2 is going to be your design pattern specific details, which is going to be in the code. It's also going to affect your user interface, though, because if you think about it, if you have some kind of undo and redo option, then maybe what you're going to do is you're going to add the undo redo capability in your part 2. But I highly recommend, if you know this is coming, then if you're going to build in some kind of user interface element, for your drag and drop or something in part 1, that you include or you plan ahead and think about, hey, maybe I need a button or some kind of user interface element in part 2. Well, then I might as well program it in part 1, but it won't be functional, something like that. And same thing with the spawning objects. You don't have to make them spawn in your base, but I will be looking for them to have some kind of factory design pattern. It may not be a spawner, but it could be something like when you drag and drop, the object actually creates a new game object in your hierarchy. That's what I'm looking for when I say factory design pattern. And then some kind of optional design pattern. So that's the main part of part 2. It's 40 marks, right, out of 100. And then pseudocode and your DLL. Your pseudocode, I could have got you to do this in part 1, but the challenge is we haven't learned design patterns, so that's why I'm holding off until part 2. And then you can have other people do this stuff. There's people you can work together on getting this done. It doesn't have to be that complex. And one of you might ask me something like, how complex do you want the pseudocode or UML? And what I'm telling you is, that's why I think UML might be easier. I want you to describe with either a diagram or pseudocode how your design pattern, which one ever you choose, ties into your game. All right. So I don't need you to put in, for example, all of mono behavior, and show me that. I mean, you may just have a representation of, hey, look, this is deriving from mono behavior, this thing that I'm making as an example. But I don't have to actually show everything else. Okay. So stay tuned for this. I'm not expecting it for it to be super complex. I just want you to show me what the design pattern looks like, as an example, the way you've implemented it, not the classic way that is, from the book, because the book might be slightly different than the way you're implementing it. So that's why it's worth only 10 marks. And the DLL is worth 10. So that's this part. Now, there's going to be a video for each part. So it says you will be creating a demo video for each assignment part, for part 1 and part 2. And let's talk about what those two things entail. So basically what I want is, you're going to make a single slide that's going to really include the people that are part of your little group, your assignment group. So if you had 4 people on your group, you'd have 4 images on there, 1 for each person. And the names of those people should be underneath those images and their student IDs. So one slide. It doesn't have to be pretty. One slide. Let's say if you had 4 people, 1, 2, 3, 4, you have 4 images and 4 names underneath them, and underneath that you have your student IDs. Then, what is it for? This is for assignment number 1 for this course. As an example, INFR3110. You put this one slide. It's a title slide for your video. That's number 1. You're going to get marks for that. You'll also demonstrate your app's functionality. So when you bring in your application, which is really what this is, right? I want to be able to see your UI clearly. So you might have one person demonstrate this. And now I've got questions like this. So Tom, how do we record a video together? Do we record separate parts and then, put it together with video editing? Like, how do you expect us to do this? And the answer for you guys is, there's a lot of different ways to do this. You could use Discord as an example, and you can join each other on Discord. One person can be recording. Here's an example. And what you do is you take control. Everyone shares their screen at different times, but there's one person that's recording the whole Discord experience, right? Could be that way. You could do it with Google Meets or Zoom. You could do a Zoom session, and then everyone records things slightly differently. It's up to you, but I recommend doing a one and done. Don't try and piece part 4 videos together and then smash them together like having somebody do video editing. It's not required. I don't need any post-processing on this thing. It doesn't have to be for this assignment part. It doesn't have to be super beautiful. As long as it's functional, I'm good. For part 2, this is where it needs to be maybe slightly nicer because you've had practice with part 1. Okay, and we'll talk about that. But the most important part is You've demonstrated your app. I can see that it works. Number one, there's no errors. And then one of your team members, or more than one, can describe the code, algorithms, logic, whatever behind that, your implementation. Okay? I want clear sound and video, so I have to be able to hear you clearly. That means test your video out, guys. If it's really hard for me to hear your video, or I can't hear you, and if it's blurry, like somehow it's terribly blurry and I can't see what you're doing, it's like you're giving me no video. Okay, I have to be able to see your video. This is your demonstration. Think about this as your academic integrity, and this is going to be your practice for your exam. Getting to know how to do these things, because you're going to have to do one of these on your own for the exam. It's important. Okay, so please make sure this is done properly. And then this is the key. Your video should be no more than 5 minutes. Well, of course, you're launching your app, you're showing me the different parts of it, and then you're talking to me about your demo. Everything within 5 minutes, approximately. If it's a little bit less, good luck. If it's a little bit less, as an example, that would be okay, as long as you cover everything. If you talk like an auctioneer or something like that. But if it's a little bit more, if it's 6, even 7 minutes, I'm not going to complain too much. But if it becomes 20 minutes or 30 minutes for each person, that's going to be too much. Okay, so please, that's why I'm saying target that. Keep it in mind in your mind. 5 minutes should be your target, plus or minus. Okay, I'm not going to go crazy and really hit you guys. When it comes to this thing. I have a question. Matthew says, can both sides of a GDW group use the same character controller that we're using for GDW? Absolutely. Because remember, what you're going to do is you're going to take, Matthew, one of the best one, which the best one is from these two things, and potentially, I recommend including it in your GDW, right? So let's say, for example, I have 2 teams of developers, and I'm going to take the best project from team 1 or 2 and include it in my GDW, right? That would be the best thing to do. Or maybe a mishmash. Maybe you like an element here and an element there, and you want to put something in so that your GDW teams have this piece that is your level editor. Okay? So yeah, what I'd ask you not to do is don't work as a big team and make the exact same thing. Like, try and make it so that there's 2 iterations. Like, someone's done it, you guys, one group has done it over here. You can talk, obviously. And another group's done it over there, but it's your own work. Each group has done things differently. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. So that is, the requirements for assignment part 1 and part 2. Okay. When you submit, I'm looking for a link to your GitHub repository for each part. All right, and that means when you put things up on GitHub, I don't want any garbage files. You're going to remove things from your make sure you have a .gitignore file for Unity, your Unity project, and also for the C++ portion for assignment part 2, make sure you embed the C++ DLL and perhaps the little project inside of your assignment part 2. So it's got to be in there, so I can download the entire thing and look at it. Okay, if you don't include the DLL, I can't check it, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to download your project from GitHub. It would be catastrophic for you not to have a working GitHub link, or if it's broken, and it would be catastrophic for you not to give me your video. That'd be terrible. Okay, so please don't do those things. Plan accordingly. Okay, and then there's a little bit of a disclaimer here about third-party plugins as well as deadlines and so on. Okay, so that's just down in there. So that is your assignment, part 1 and 2. Again, it's due. The first part is due next week. Part 2 is due the week after. Okay, so that's a group assignment that you're going to do. And just as we're talking, let's go up on Canvas and change that group size because I don't want to forget to do that. I think it's under. Is it under people? I'm not going to show you this because it'll show everybody online, and I don't want that. Just give me 1 sec, guys. And that would be a bad thing. Worst case, if I can't do it right now, let's do it later. Canvas is it's got its own nuances when it comes to groups. So, yeah, here it is. I'm really hoping that I don't have to change my entire group set. Yeah, here it is. So it's very easy. All right, so now you can make groups of 4. So if you go up online, this is one of your requirements. Let me just pull this over so you can see it. You can see a bunch of groups here. You can go up online and please select your your group. I would do that today if possible. I've made it groups of up to 4. Even if the documents is up to 3, I'm okay with up to 4. Okay, again, I'm just trying to support what James has asked you to do. I don't want to go make your life difficult and say, no, maximum 3, I don't care. No, it's not going to be like that. I'm going to say kind of things like, okay, do what you have to do. Now, here's what I don't want, though. Okay, this is what I'm asking you not to do. Okay, and this is an ask from me to you. Please do not split your team unevenly, like 4 people working together on one project and 2 people working together on another one. I would recommend and I would ask that you split it up evenly, and worst case, add a 4th person. So it'd be like a 4 and 3 situation, not a 4 and 2 if you only had a group of 6. Okay, please don't do that. Please do 3 and 3s. Okay, so that way it's evenly distributed. It's this because this is made for 3 people. That's why I'm giving it to you this way. It's not meant for 1 person or 2 people. Right? So it'll be extremely more difficult for you if you try and do something like that. That would not be good. Unless, and I have to put this proviso again, every group is different. And every I would say the dynamics of each group is slightly different. So if you really need to do that for whatever reason, please connect with me on Discord, send me a note through email, something to get approval, because I will approve different things to support you guys if you have some kind of ongoing need or whatever, but I need you to let me know. Okay, please don't surprise me and don't say, look, by the way, Tom, we've decided 4 and 2. No, I'm not going to accept that. Please let me know ahead of time so I can plan. Clear? So that is your assignment 1, part 1 and 2 details. Any questions around that? Again, I am recording right now, so be cognizant of that. You can always add something in the chat, or you can wait till after when we stop recording to ask the question live. It's up to you. All right. Okay, let's move on to the next piece then, since I don't have a question coming up yet. If you think of something, I'll go back and ask again. The next part is GDW requirements. This is also up. And if you look at Canvas, it's right here, GDW project requirements. So this is the stuff that you're going to talk to our friend James about during JamesCon, right? So here are the essentials. When it says essentials, this is like what I would be requiring of you as an example for your GDW. Now, if you're a non-GDW group, that means you're going to have to come up with a small game that's reasonable, and I mean that in a very nice way, a reasonable game that you're going to be creating because obviously you're not in GDW. You may not have the same reviews, but I will be checking on you at the same time as the GDW group, so which means that I'll be checking on you as an example during those checkpoints, which I'll talk about how I'm going to manage in a second. Okay? So, all projects are required to show the use of repositories and version controls. We've talked about this already. So, in your slide for James, put version control. It's something that Tom wants for engines. It's required, guys. Extensibility of Unity functionality through a DLL. It's going to be required. That is something that you need. That's an aligned assignment that you need to put together. That's why this assignment here, your group project part 1, you need to do it. Teams are required to show progress and task completion based on the assigned roles. For example, you should be using something like Jira, Freecamp, Trello, something or another with a project management tool. So producers, whoever you are, you should have chosen by now the means that you're going to be tracking your project, because now we're into week 3. You should know what kind of game you're kind of making. So please, when you do your final demo video, which will be longer than just 5 minutes, I'm hoping, for your final project here, make sure that you also show me your project management tool that you're using. It doesn't have to be extensive. As an example, say we've used Trello. And here's another thing some people have asked in the past with this. Can I use a PowerPoint or slide deck as an example as a backdrop so I can organize how I'm presenting to you in the video, Tom? And the answer is absolutely. I'm only making the first title slide required. The rest is up to you if you want to add additional slides to frame your video so it's easier for you to follow along, right? It's going to be easier for me. Okay, but I'm not going to require it of you, but if you do use them, I need you to upload or give me that slide deck. All right. All sources of code, either other than your own, must be acknowledged. When using other sources, you must explain your contribution to the code. Unsatisfactory explanations and contributions will result in 0 marks for that component. Please, let's not run into this detail in terms of where you got your code from. You must submit a link to your repository and a demo video report with your PowerPoint or Google Slides. So that means that your demo video report itself, I recommend you put it up on YouTube. You can use Twitch or another streaming service. I do not want a video to be uploaded. You know, like let's say, I don't know, some kind of 500 meg video or something crazy. Please don't do that to me. Remember, I have to download these things, and so does Nicholas, and look at them. And 500 megs is going to actually, you're going to have a limit on Canvas anyway. It won't allow you, right? So that's why I'm asking for a link. Okay. Submit a code on the cloud storage or zip files via email or Blackboard will be graded as 0. So please don't send me email. You know, and it's instead of Blackboard, substitute Blackboard for Canvas. It doesn't matter, right? At the end of the day, please don't, you know, zip archive everything and put it up. I want links. That's what I'm looking for. So that should be changed. Now that I've seen this as Blackboard, it should say Canvas. I apologize. All deadlines are final, and repositories are going to be graded on the due date and time. So again, why am I putting these up? I'm not trying to make you crazy or make you upset or anything like that or give you anxiety. It's because I have deadlines and I have to make sure that your marks are up and that you get good feedback and you're evaluated properly. So please help me out. Don't kill me by by submitting things late. That would be bad. Okay. Game design patterns. You must utilize at least 2. So take a look at that. I've said that you're making your level editor. Your level editor could be enough to satisfy your design patterns from assignment part 1 or their group assignment 1. Group assignment 2 will handle management systems, which we're going to be talking about in the second half of semester, right? So if you do group assignment 1, you can include that as part of your requirements for your GDW. And if you do group assignment 2 properly, and if you like it, and if it works with your game, you can include this as management systems for your GDW, right? Again, this is the idea behind these assignments. So there's something that's going to help you progress your game. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to help you guys. And when I was working with Alvaro and Rob last year on developing these things, we thought about, hey, how can we help the students, do better? Instead of like me giving you some random assignment that is nothing to do, with what you're building, trying to do something. And again, it's hard because everyone has a different idea of what the game they're going to make is. Trying to do something so that you can kind of do a one and done. That's the idea behind here, right? So, your game must utilize at least 3 of the following management systems, and at least one of them must be implemented as a C++ plugin. Hello, we've already talked about a C++ plugin. And you're probably going to have to do a second one. Okay, so here's what you can do. A graphical user interface editing tool. Hello, that's what we just told you about. A particle management system. You want to make your own particle manager. Animation creator and editor, right? Asset management tool. Textures, 3D models, and scripts. User metrics logger. That's an easy one. Save and load manager. Hello, that's from assignment number 1, right? Again, do you see where I'm going? I think it's pretty, straightforward. And then 2 management systems, working, some kind of working management system. You're going to do a live demonstration, and you may use an external plugin from another source or the Unity App Store for one of the systems. And we'll talk about what those systems are going to be. Okay. The C++ plugin is going to be rated separately. It's got to be working. And when it says live demonstration here, there's going to be a video requirement. But then during the last week, one of the things we're going to be doing is I'm actually going to get you to demo your stuff to me, right? So this is where we're going to get together and you're going to actually show me your stuff, just like you're going to do next week. Next week, what's going to happen is I'm going to kind of split you into different rooms, and we're going to talk about this for checkpoint 1, because notice inside of our PowerPoint, we have this checkpoint 1 thing happening next week. Checkpoint 1 is aligned with your GDW requirements for James. So for people who are non-GDW, it's me getting to understand what your game idea is. Okay, please keep the scope small. And for people who have GDW, what I'm looking for is a shortened version of your pitch, presentation that you would have made to James. That's what I'm looking for. There is, like, in terms of code, I'm not looking for code next week from you guys. I'm looking for, this is the game we're doing. This is our team. Here's our idea. Here's our MDA, mechanics, dynamics, and aesthetics, or whatever you're going to do for your game, so that I can get to know what kind of game you're going to do, and if it makes sense, the things that you're doing for engines. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for next week. So it's almost like you're going to redo a little bit of a pitch presentation to me during lecture. So that's why next week is super important. I would say so, yes, Roderick. So abridged means that I don't need all the pieces that you've presented to James, because James might ask you for additional things. For example, I don't need to see your aligned assignments for other professors, just mine, right? So you can exclude that slide. But other things, like, for example, things like what project management tools are you going to use, or the same things that James has asked you for, I need to see them so I understand what you're making, right? It's a checkpoint, so I know you're going in the right direction. I'm going to give you feedback, right? It's not going to be for marks, but I want to know that you're doing it. It's required for you guys to come during your project checkpoint 1. Okay, so please make sure you're ready to present to me next week. Okay, that's going to be during class. Okay, so that is going to support, again, what we're talking about here, which is, okay, so you're going to be creating some stuff here. Management system is going to be another piece to it. Okay, then, and it could be one part also is, notice I'm asking for performance profiling. You're going to be asked for this. And notice that there's live demonstration pieces or requirements for each of these pieces. So you're going to show me your management systems, do a live demonstration on these. Show me a C++ plugin, show me that. Show me your performance profiling. So each of these is going to be linked to some kind of live demo component. Okay. Submission requirements. Describe the systems you chose, and if you notice that each of these areas has its own submission requirements. So, example, your game design patterns have submission requirements. All right, like where it says a written report. This written report is going to be including your UML stuff, right? So, right now, you don't need to have a written report for your assignment, your group assignment part 1, but for your final project, which is this, there'll be a written component. Okay. And the same thing goes with each of these piece parts. So, for example, this part here, the management system, will have its own submission requirements. Why have we cut it this way? We've done it this way so that way, again, you can make the best use of your team. You can have one team, focus on your management systems. You can have another team that's focusing on your design patterns, right? So that way, again, you can split up your team accordingly. Now, if you're a small group and you're non-GDW, keep your scope small, like I said, so that this doesn't kill you, because this could be a lot for you to do in one semester. For me, as this is the only course you have, as an example. And if you don't have a group, at the end of the day, I'm going to hang back after class. And for the people who are non-GDW, I think it's important that you try and put yourself in a group first. And if not, I'm going to try and help you, kind of put you together, and maybe I'll assign roles like, let's suppose a guy's name is Tom in your group. Tom, you're the producer. Mike, you're the lead software engineer. Aaron, you're the game designer, and then kind of allocate different roles to the people who are non-GDW to help you along with your project, because I want to make sure that you guys are organized and can get things done. Okay, and finally, the demo video guidelines. Notice this, we're 20%. 20% of your final your assignment. And the reason why this is important is because it says 5 minutes here. You may look for this. It's going to be 5 minutes per piece is what I'm looking at. 5 minutes for each assignment part, for each component, if you will. So that's like, it can work out to be like 15 minutes. All right. So what I'll do is I'll update this document so it expresses the exact time down here. So look for an update. This is kind of like, I would say, my first kick at the can, my first draft. It's fairly complete. I'm not going to make a lot of changes to it, especially due dates. I'm not going to make due date changes because this thing is going to be due, the entire thing is going to be due at the last week of class, in and around your final exam time. All right, so I'll give you the exact due dates. I'll open up the Dropbox for the components that are going to be due as soon as we pass midterm. Okay, so there's also a rubric. By the way, the other assignment as well, assignment number 1, Part 1 has a rubric. Please take a look at the rubric in the back. It tells you where you're going to get your marks. For example, the base is worth 30 points. If the level editor is non-existent, the base is non-existent, then you're going to get 0. And then you get marks accordingly. For you to get beyond 85%, you need to go above and beyond. All right? That's how this works for each of your pieces in the rubric. All right? So take a look. If you're looking at above and beyond or above 85% for this assignment, please look on this column. Okay? It's not easy because it's above and beyond. All right, so that's the same as your GDW requirements. Here's above and beyond, and it tells you what we're looking for. If you look through the entire document, it tells you what's happening. There's also a bonus marks area, which I will assign for additional management systems and an additional plugin. And there's also something else called an individual contribution. It's also part of your assignment 1. So here's assignment 1. And there's a part down here that says individual contribution, 5 marks. What is this piece that I'm talking about? It's not anywhere else in the document. Well, at the end of your assignment, your total assignment, and this is like when you're done assignment part 1, I'm going to make you do a peer review, right? Similar to what James does for your assignment. I'll give you a peer review for your assignments, and I'll give you a peer review for your GDW thing. So that way you can kind of remark on the contribution of your team. Now, I'm hoping that your team at this point, after this is the 3rd year you're together, that you love each other at this point, and you're not gonna throw anyone under the bus, and that everyone's working together in the same direction. You're all cylinders are firing at the same time. Kind of trying to make your game. But there's always some group or someone who's less productive than others. And if there's a case like that, and I'm not looking for you to flag them as unproductive or something like that, but I think we can adjust people's marks according to their contribution. So that's the idea behind it. And that's what the individual contribution is at the bottom. During your checkpoints, especially during the last checkpoint, I will ask you questions about your assignment, your GDW project. Every member of the team should understand the project, how it's being made. It doesn't matter whether you're a designer or a software engineer or whatever. You should understand the design patterns, at least at a very high level. And I also expect you guys to support each other and jump in there if someone doesn't know something, to show group cohesion. I'm looking at that from you guys. So that's part of the exercise for the GDW project. All right, so that is, again, going to be due at the final week of class, the actual thing, and I'm going to give you more details as we get closer to make sure that you guys have everything you need. So I'm just going to kill these 2 things. But remember that when it comes to final submission guidelines, you're going to look online to Canvas for that. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. So if I actually go look at Canvas, let's take a look at this together. If you actually look at group assignment 1, if I click in there, you're going to see a description of what I'm looking for group assignment 1 in Canvas as well, not just the document. The document's there for information, just in case, as an example, you're not part of a group. Because you can't do this, you won't even see these assignments, I don't believe, until you join a group. So that's part of one of your exercises today. When I take a short break, which is going to be in about 5 minutes, I want you guys to align yourselves in groups as soon as possible so that you can start looking at these things. Okay? That's an exercise. So if you look at this, it tells you the base, it tells you what's required, and it tells you what the submission details are. You're going to see the same thing for your GDW requirements as we come closer to the end of the semester. Okay? That's what's going to happen. Okay. I've talked my brains out for almost an hour. Can we get any questions related to, the group assignment part 1 or GDW project? Anything that I can help with? If you have a concern, I want to deal with it now so that we're all fantastic and beautiful people by the end. Okay, no one's saying anything. How about a hand if you want me to wait? Because if you, and if you have a question or if it comes up after, then we can deal with it then. Okay, if you don't have questions or whatever, that's fine for now. I'm sure you're going to have them. Again, I'm here to help, and so is Nicholas. We're not here to crucify you or make this a difficult time for you. Absolutely, Logan. I don't want you to feel pressured, especially when we're live. Okay, so you can ask that question when we're down. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop this video. So the video I've just made is just for your assignment details. There's nothing else on this video. So this way, if you want to, you can just look at that video, and then it's not going to be anything to do with the lesson today. Okay, so let me just stop the video now, and I hope I can put it up on Canvas. If not now, it'll be up later. So let's stop.